Good morning, dear friend. This is the Thursday version of this thing of ours, May the 16th, 2024, Common Era. And as we always do, I want to remind you there is 173 days until the election. I just want to say that. I don't think people grasp that. We're under 6 months. This is tomorrow. The election is tomorrow. It is moving so fast. And yet most people are feeling this incredible sense of, to use Alan Greenspan's term, an irrational exuberance. Everything is doing great. Somehow on my iPad, there's a kind of a rotation. And this fellow named Jesse Watters has a show on Fox, and it kind of filtered into extravasated into my lane of traffic. And it was nothing but a roast. It was a comedy smart aleck roast about how stupid Joe Biden is, how stupid the Democrats are, how stupid Hillary Clinton is, how stupid they are. Everybody's stupid. They're stupid. Everybody's stupid. Clips, ha, bad jokes. And I'm thinking to myself, this is where political commentary is today? This is where it is? I don't think so. This is the biggest mistake you can make, because this breeds overconfidence. And this breeds, yet again, another example of Republicans feeling we've got everything in the bag. And do not forget one thing, my friends. Do not forget one thing. Listen to me carefully. You have no idea how this thing really works. If you compartmentalize your politics into left and right, into conservative and Republican, and conservative and liberal, and all of that, you are missing something so Byzantine. It's not even funny. We're going to be talking about that. The titular subject is Bill Maher, but it's not really Bill Maher. It's what Bill Maher represents. It's this group of people who are trying desperately to find their way into new platform audiences, and they'll try their hand at politics, I guess. And this is as old as as dust. This is somebody coming forth and saying all of a sudden, hey, guess what? I'm really not the Bill Maher you thought. I'm really not let's say, the liberal Democrat. I'm really not. I'm this hybrid. Seinfeld's doing it. People who clamor against the culture, cancel culture, they don't mean it for a moment, but it's a new tweaking of the message. We're going to be talking about that. And also, it's time for you to get Byzantine, again, to get really conspiratorial and see how history works. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about Trump's trial, which is not going to be heard today. But in the meantime, my friends, let me remind you to please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button. Subscriptions are critical because people are being unsubscribed for reasons I shan't ever know. So please, please, please like this, hit the like. We love your likes. Your likes actually grow our algorithms, and it pushes us into the fast lane and lets people get hit by us. Think of it as an intellectual Frogger with more semis splatting the little amphibious critters. In any event, so please, before we begin, dear friends, before we start, let us first go to the critical words from our critical sponsor. My friends, gold has been on an unstoppable run. It's gone up more than 81% in the last 5 years and almost 20% in the last 12 months. And it's happening, and happening now. Central banks are ditching the dollar, and U.S. treasuries are buying more gold. And the good news, it's predicted to go up even more. It's true. UBS even said it would go up to $5,000. Noble Gold Investments' phone has been ringing nonstop off the hook. Everyone wants to protect their retirement with gold, and you can do the same. Noble Gold Investments can help you secure some gold to protect your future. From day one, you work with the same dedicated all-American expert. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced investor, Noble Gold Investments will make sure you get all the help you need. And this month, Noble Gold Investments will give you a free 1/4 ounce gold standard coin if you open a qualified account. So go to LionelNationGold.com right now. LionelNationGold.com. LionelNationGold.com. And remember, there's always a risk of investment, and there's no guarantee of any kind. Now, my friends, a couple of things here. Let me get down to brass tacks, the tax of brass. And this is important for everybody to understand. First, I'm going to talk about a few things here. Since I have been, I didn't really, I don't think many people did this, but in 1988, I became part of this kind of burgeoning world of talk radio at the time. Now think about this. This is important. This is 35 going on 36 years ago. And it was so wonderful. It was you have no idea how great it was. And all of a sudden people who followed in the footsteps of, they kind of sort of maybe wanted to be Rush Limbaugh, but I want to say Rush Limbaugh really wasn't that universal then, that universally huge. I mean, he was big, but not where I was. He might have been big in Sacramento or elsewhere. But radio to me was the idea to be really funny and to be dangerous and to be. I was coming from the world of pirate radio and Lenny Bruce and George Carlin and people who were really going on at Kentucky Fried Theater and remember the Groove Tube and all those wonderful SNL, Saturday Night Live. And it was an iteration, if you will, of the news being cool. And it wasn't really yet into a, how do I say this? It was not into a political framework as much as it was until Rush Limbaugh came along. Please forgive me. I must give you the background of this because many of you are jumping in now and you're thinking, oh, this is great. Bill Maher. No, Bill Maher he's the latest iteration of something which has been cycling forever. Okay, so here's what's happening. So there was this guy named Rush Limbaugh who came later. But before that, there were these people who really made radio kind of interesting. And believe it or not, I think the father of that was Howard Stern. Radio, why is radio? Radio was important because it was pre-social media. If you wanted to listen to somebody, listen to talk radio, you heard callers. Callers were the most important thing in the world. Callers were always the unheralded part of talk radio, and the call screener was the most important part. Not the producer, not the board up, the call screener. Okay. Everything's groovy. Everything's fine. Rush Limbaugh comes along, and all of a sudden, people start going crazy. Now, what happened was, and we're seeing it now, there was a shift. A lot of guys who were doing the overnights on Paradise, the guys who were doing the overnights at KCO, whatever it was, all of these people out there who had the voices, Charlie Tuna, Charlie this. We had a guy, Charlie Tuna. There was a great guy, Howard Hughes, HEWES or something like that. But there were all these great, they still have the voice, and you had to have a voice. You had to have a voice for radio. You had to have a voice. I never had a voice. My best description, I heard people say, Joe Pesci, but the best description anybody ever gave me was, they said, you sound like Curly Howard on Benzedrine, which I think was still brilliant. Interestingly enough, my particular voice, being what it is, always cut through. So when people would say, I want you to listen to this guy, they'd say, well, how do you know it's him? You'll know. Plus, it was one name and all that stuff. Anyway, nobody really cared. It's no big deal. But what happened, and here's the point of this story. What happened is all of a sudden people said, wait a minute. You got some guy who is being overnights at Paradise 103, the guy who's been doing the news, the guy who's got the voice, the guy who's been doing, here come the air quotes, radio. He says, I want to come forward. And they said, but what do you know about politics? He says, what are you talking about? I'm in radio. Well, what are you talking about? No, you don't know anything. What's your angle? And believe it or not, the left, right, conservative, liberal thing hadn't really been as, and I don't think it's relevant today, but anyway, but it hadn't really been as solidified and as made obvious. Therefore, they came out of nowhere. Cut to today. Oh, and by the way, talk radio was pretty much considered left, right, conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, black, white. There's no white. There's no black talk radio. Nope. It was white bread. Angry white guy. That's what it was. Late people yelled again and that kind of stuff. And by the way, my voice, my southern voice, I can break into voices and it makes me think differently. I do a more urban black voice, a more I could do more of a quote prototypical Jewish. Other I could do a number of different forms of Southern. But the reason why I don't do it is because people will say, "Oh, you're making fun of them," as opposed to just listening to the way they speak and thinking differently. Ladies and gentlemen, Skunk Freaker says, avid listener for years. Hail Conspiratorium. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you for that. Thank you. Truly, thank you for that. We are a part of the Conspiratorium Clerisy. Think about that, because remember, when somebody gives you a name, embrace it. That's what folks did. That's the way. Also, grab the word yourself. They did it with gay folks, grabbed gay. Okay. So anyway, all of a sudden, in the world of talk radio, hear me out. There were these guys. First of all, there was Walter Williams, and there was Thomas Sowell. These were intellectuals. They were different. They really weren't on radio. But then there was a guy named Ken Hamblin, Armstrong Williams, J.C. Watts. All of a sudden, these black conservatives. Then later on, Larry Elder, and they were the Charlie Pride of conservative radio. And it was brilliant because people loved them. Hey, we got a black conservative on. And I used to joke, J.C. Watts, the congressman from Oklahoma, or football player, the C stands for see. And they would bring him on. Come on, J.C. Tell everybody, see, he's a black guy. See? And we knew this. And they're saying, that's okay. It's like what I talked to years ago, these little people who used to make money at dwarf tossing. Oh, yeah, in Florida, years ago, they had dwarf tossing. They had little saddles where they would throw people, these dwarves, little people, and they wanted to ban it. And they said, no, we're making a fortune here. By the way, on a tangential subject, somebody says, it takes a lot. He says, do you know how much I weigh? This one guy, little guy, he says, I weigh as much as you. He said, we're not light. I thought, that's interesting. I never thought about that. To make a long story short, people who themselves were the subject of the exploitation loved it. They don't care. That's why Stormy Daniels. That's why people who were doing, OnlyFans, and people who debauch and totally degrade their own image, they don't care because they're making money. Okay, so the idea of the novelty. I know this is 12 minutes into it. The idea of the talk radio anomaly and the political commentary anomaly is nothing new. It's been around forever. Enter Bill Maher. Bill Maher is trying to figure out, well, where am I going with this? First of all, Bill Maher is, he started off, he says, I'm an atheist. Okay, so he figured, all right, I'm going to compete with the atheists. And he read basically all of the internet stuff about, who is it? Mithra, and how the Christianity is all pagan, and everything about the Jesus, whatever is. I mean, it's old. It's been ripped off from the internet forever, and that was his shtick. It didn't work for a while. Then he had people on, and then he started doing a show. And remember, he had some problems. He learned years ago when he was suggesting that somehow the people who flew airplanes into the towers had more intrepidity, more guts than we do. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, fine. He was the Ward Churchill. See if you can remember that one of his time. Now he's doing this new thing. He's trying this thing where he says, Israel. This is where you become the old fart. And this is where I absolutely disabuse myself. I break myself of any reference to people my particular age. When you get to a certain age, you love to think that your version of life and music and poetry and history, that's legitimate. That's authentic. Everybody else is stupid. They're dumb. They don't know what they're doing. Okay, fine. That may or may not make sense. That may or may not apply. But in any event, you have these people who do this. Well, now his whole thing is, I'm Mr. Israel. Number one. Number two, these kids today are stupid. These kids today, with their stupid encampments, wearing their keffiyehs, and in my, I was really a child of the 70s, but in 1969 I was 11, and I remember that. They said it was the peace sign. Look at these, and they always talk about these long-haired, smelly, pot-smoking kids with the little peace sign. They're a bunch of wimps and wussies. They did the same thing that our parents or those parents did then. So Bill Maher is recycling it for two reasons. Number one, he's turning into a fossil because he has his improvisation and his yearning stopped at a particular age. Mine just picked up. I always ask people, I always want to ask Paul McCartney, why can't you write songs now? Why doesn't Springsteen write a song now worth a damn? Why are some people, what happens? Well, Dylan's like 100 years old, but why were you the most fecund and the most fertile and the most imaginative when you were 20 years old? Why can't you write a song now? Burt Bacharach wrote, whatever. But that's what happens. And Bill Maher is one of these people who just, his time is, he's on the back nine, he views, and his innovation, because the innovation that happens to people a lot of times, it's because they're learning, they're looking for something, they're looking for an identity, they're looking for a message, they're looking for something. And they're very experimental, and it's great. And you're out there and people are on the road and they find their way and they get great. And then they figure, I have made it. Have you ever noticed how all of a sudden somebody can come along? And once they make their, like Chappelle, you notice Chappelle doesn't have that. Chappelle doesn't have that. I don't know what it is. That excitement. You always have to figure a new way to say, I want to discover something new. I want to change. I want to do something new. It is boring. And always. Let me give you a perfect example. Years ago, when I was a carnivore, well, I am at heart, but there was a place right around the garden. And they had they served shawarma. Not shawarma, shawarma. And it was just wonderful. You can get it from the halal guys, kind of a thing. The rice with the white sauce or the red sauce and this stuff. And they had this huge spit. You've seen it, a rotating thing where they layer the meat and the lamb and all this stuff. They have it on this skewer, and as the outside gets crispy, they shave it off to get the next level. Have you seen it before? They have this, it's almost like an electric knife, or they used to have, this guy had a knife, this big sword. It was great. So as I was waiting, and I was watching this, I said, oh, so when your outside levels get crispy and old and maybe not juicy anymore, cut that off to expose the new level, the fresh meat, the kind of undercooked, the stuff that's still juicy, the stuff that could take a little more ripening and maturing and cooking, and you know what I mean? Shave off this, like cutting a nail, a callus. I don't know what the hell the analogy is, but that's what you need to do in life. You've been in this, move on, shave. Enough with this. Left, right, move on to the thing. Let's go to science. Let's go to philosophy. Let's go to love. Change it. Mix it up. What do you want to do? You have no idea how many times I want to do shows on philosophy, on psychology, on crime, true crime, law, religion, just what people love, interpersonal. I would love one day to do a show where I take your problems and I take your problems. I'd love to do a show like that. And you know what I would do? Wait a minute, ladies and gentlemen. It's Alexander Felke. My God. My laptop is so tiny. Forget gold. Enjoy more meat. Okay, thank you. And that is your right, my friend. Please do. Remember, it's a free country. It's a free country. And thank you, sir. But as this goes on, I've always want to ask people, and what I would do, you know how a cytologist, how in the old days, the guy in the lab, a pathologist, he would take the sample, he would cut it, he would fix it, he would stain it, he would put it in a thing, and then he'd say, here, now look at it. And you look under the microscope, oh my God, it's cancer. I didn't see that. That's right, because I shaved it, I stained it, I fixed it, I made it perfect. Now look at it. And that's what I would do with your problem. I wouldn't solve it, but I would expose it. I'm saying, you don't understand the problem. The reason why people are so upset, aside from clinical depression and the like, or some kind of neurological or psychiatric problem, is because they really don't understand the problem. They really don't. They're just overwhelmed with it. Okay. Back to Bill Maher. So Bill Maher now, his whole thing is, I am a uber Israeli, whatever it is. And it's going to backfire like you can't believe. First of all, it doesn't mean anything, and it's phony. Remember one thing. People always be able to tell a phony. He doesn't believe it. There's a fellow, have you seen this comedian named Michael Rappaport, who is what we used to call, before we changed our vocabulary, retarded. He can't even get through a sentence without you can feeling the pain that he feels. Well, he's trying he has rediscovered his Judaism, and I guess his adopted Zionism, and he's going to out scream you. Let's see how that works. Remember, you can only do that so far. Bill Maher appeared in a conversation with a fellow named Bill Burr, who absolutely owned him, destroyed him, killed him, and basically proved that Bill Burr and Maher, try that. Bill Maher doesn't know what he's talking about. And it's a part of where we're going. When you have Ainsley Earhart, bless her heart. I've never met her. She seems like just a very nice person. I think by virtue of her outside affect. I know nothing about, I know she and Sean Hannity, I wish them nothing but happiness. I wish everybody happiness internally. But she doesn't know anything about what she's talking about. They could hand her something denying gravity, and she would read it. And she would do it in a way where she says, hey, y'all, that kind of a thing that people refer to it. Hey, y'all, and you know what? This gravitational, I think quantum theory will show you that Newton was wrong. It's a time-space dialect. She'll, whatever you tell her, she will do it. And she's smart. And she says, I'm just glad to be here. I'm just here for the beer. I'm sitting here. I'm making millions of dollars. I'm loved. I'm going to say whatever you want. And who can blame her? You don't go to Ainsley because you want to, or Ducey, and certainly Kilmeade, who looks like this hyperactive kids where the meds have worn off. These are people who basically, do you ever watch a puppet show? Did you ever watch a puppet show? We don't do them anymore. You really don't do a puppet show. You don't do it. But there was this thing where you get the people when they're hitting each other with them. And people would say, why am I watching this? I know it's not real. I know it's just a wooden puppet. I know it's not, I know it's not real. I know it's not real. But why am I watching this? Why am I watching this? Why? I'm watching it because it's kind of fun. And for whatever the reason, I'm kind of digging it. And that's what some people do. You watch it just like this Jesse Waters guy. He reads the prompter, they write it for him, and it's a roast. It's making fun of everybody. That's the political. And look, if it works, it's great. Other people are saying we're not into that. We're moving on. We just can't do that. The Beach Boys can play Help Me Rhonda forever. Other people can say, I can't do that anymore. I can't do this anymore. George Harrison couldn't do it. I can't be a Beatle anymore. I can't do this. Okay, fine. There is something which is happening right now in addition to this, which is a revolution that I am absolutely embracing, and I'm so happy. and it is a, dare I say, a new version. And it is, and for the time being, this could all change next week. When I get onto something, I tend to like it. I will go through periods of time where I will eat the same thing every single day. I eat the same thing for breakfast for 10 years, every day, without fail. Not because of any kind of faith or I just like it and I stick with it. And if I notice something new, I'll say, this is really good. And I know it. And I know it's good. And I don't have to spend a lot of time, because you don't have to eat the whole egg to know it's rotten. And consequently, you don't have to spend a lot of time doing something before you realize, no, this is really good. Breaking points. And another thing was, this morning, there was a piece I saw from The Rising. And there was a piece that was done by Robbie. Well, let's say Robbie, whatever his name is, Suave or Suavecito. Or he writes for Reason Magazine. This is Nick Gillespie and Reason and all those guys, the libertarians. And there was a fellow who did one of the most fascinating pieces about, remember the vaccine court? The vaccine court was originally started in like the 80s or so. And it was done to deal with what they thought might be some problems they might have with some kind of anti-anthrax vaccines and the like. And they'll say, okay, we're going to put a little compensation board, and we're going to make it very easy for you. If you get hurt with the vaccine, we're not granting immunity, but we know we'll take care of it. We'll speed this through. It'll be we'll green light it. We'll fast track it. You don't have to spend years in court. We'll compensate your lawyer. Blah 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 blah. That was then. Then came the COVID version, the vaccine court, and that thing, I think they've made like 9 payouts, and that has because they just could not have imagined the cacophony, the concatenation, the calamity, the whatever you want to call it, of the COVID era. They could not have imagined that in the least. Okay. One of the most fascinating issues there is. You're not going to hear that anywhere else. Why? Intrepid reporting, younger people wanting, who are so interested, I will take them any day. Any day. Because they have what Bill Maher used to have. They have what Chappelle used to have. They have what Springsteen, when he was playing Max's Kansas City. There was this thing where they were interested and knew, and they wanted it, and they weren't jaded, and they were brave and sometimes stupid. I loved it. And then we turn to the old people. Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton actually came out and said, young people don't know anything about history. They don't know what they're doing. She actually said this. And what you're seeing right now is you're seeing this confusion. You're seeing, did you know, there was a piece, one of the best ones ever. There's a fellow, Emily and Ryan. By the way, breaking points, little note, side note on the description, put out their names. Don't put Ryan and Emily. I don't know who Emily Jerzynski's. I don't know. Put their name and their Twitter handles. They did one of the best pieces ever on this dance that the Biden administration has done with the Israeli lobby and the Israeli movement. It is brilliant, and you'll never see it on TV. You'll never see it with Jesse Waters. You'll never see it with Bill Maher. You'll just never see it. And the reason why is because it is not marketable, and the Mahers of the world are lazy. Let me also say something to you, and I want you to listen very, very carefully. One of the reasons why, and I want you to understand something. Listen to me very carefully. Trust me when I tell you this. I want to tell you something about weed. Okay? And I want you to listen, let me give you the absolute truth about weed, marijuana. But first, before we do this, I want you to listen to these critical words from our critical sponsor at preparewithlionel.com regarding this thing called food emergency. It blows my mind that more people aren't talking about this. That's the wrong one. This is the right one. Excuse me. I'm sorry. This one. It's no longer a question of if something catastrophic is coming, it's when. And while you still have some control, what are you going to do about it now to prepare? Well, your first step is going to my website, preparewithlionel.com. And for a limited time, take $200 off a 3-month emergency food supply. My Patriot Supply is equipped to help you and your family to prepare. They've helped over 2 million families already. These 3-month kits with ready hour foods provide over 2,000 calories every day with 22 varieties and a 25-year shelf life. Breakfast, lunches, dinners, drinks, snacks, everything. And they're sealed inside 6 rugged waterproof buckets, and they're over 120 pounds of food. So take advantage right now and go to preparewithlionel.com, preparewithlionel.com. One more time, preparewithlionel.com. Now, I want to tell you one thing about weed, and this is something that nobody. I'm not one of these people who says I'm not reefer madness and all that kind of stuff. All right, but I want you to listen to me carefully. First, when I was a kid, and people our generation, we lived back. We remember this thing called reefer madness, and reefer madness was, I think, it made in the 20s. If you haven't seen it, you owe yourself. It was just terrific. Reefer madness was an absolute. How do I say this? It was an absolute diabolical, and complete and total waste of time regarding how people thought about marijuana. And the reason why marijuana was important, because you got to understand something. Marijuana posed a couple of threats. Number one, it posed a threat to the hemp industry. I know nobody cares to think about that, but it is true. Hemp at the time, which is, of course, he deactivated a non-psychotized, or whatever the word is, version of cannabis, sativa or indica, whatever it is. But this was, the hemp, the rope, the canvas stuff. It was just, but it won't get high. But it won't get you high. But the actual fiber itself is terrific. And at the time, when it was being used in rope and sails and everything, at the time there was a group called DuPont. DuPont came along with this thing called polyesters and the like, rayon and dacron and this. And one of the biggest threats that existed, this cheap, easy to harvest weed called hemp, which people blended over and looped it into the world of marijuana, that the same stuff that black folks and hippies and all these other people smoked. There weren't hippies then, but okay. Harry Anslinger, who was the head of the narcotics group, who was it? Lucky Luciano called him ass liquor. He was bought and owned by Hearst, and they put out this thing for 2 reasons. Number one, in order to assuage and deal with the fears of the DuPont family. And the second one was Hearst had newspapers. What does newspaper need to print? Paper. Where's paper come from? Timber. And who posed, at one particular point, significant threats to timber right around the border areas. And it was, of course, Pancho Villa. Pancho Villa was a bad guy, and Pancho Villa was a Mexican. So cannabis turned into marijuana, M-A-R-I-G. Remember the H-U-A or J. But it became this psychoactive drug of choice of the dark, dirty, and criminal elements of the Mexican community, and it was their drug of choice. Okay, marijuana made them crazy. So you got hemp, basically, which is really the darling, but they were going to blast it, and they were going to do these omnibus bills, which basically Hearst and others owned Congress, and through this Bureau of Dangerous Drugs or whatever it was called, the precursor to DEA, they were going to put this thing out. And reefer madness. Remember Jimmy Buffett, pencil-thin mustache, and all the jazz musicians were smoking marijuana. You know how long they've been doing cocaine? I knew a guy in Tampa years ago who was, He was in his, this is years ago. This was 30 years ago. He was in his 70s then. Cocaine was around forever. I mean, cocaine was absolutely, it's huge. People think it's new. No, no. But weed, unbelievable. And it was indeed one of the, by the way, rumor has it that Louis Armstrong had his handkerchief for different reasons. A lot of the musicians would always be, whatever. Now, from all of that hype came marijuana. And they tried everything in the world. They tried everything in the world to try to say it'll kill you, it'll cause frog babies. And no, not really. There was a wonderful book called Cannabis in Costa Rica. I'll never forget this. I'll never forget this. Incredible book. They took a number of disciplines. They looked at people who smoked in various groups, and they found out that there was the only significant difference they found between users and non-users by looking at this one particular group. Oh, and by the way, when these academicians and scientists said, we need a group of people that we can study who are into chronic marijuana use, chronic, who do not have other adulterants, who don't smoke cigarettes and don't drink liquor. Where do we go? I mean, there are people who smoke a lot of weed, but they're not, there are other aspects of their life that could contaminate the results. And they said, oh, I know where it is. Oh, you want to go Costa Rica? They're up there. That's all they do is smoke. That's it. They smoke. At the time, I mean, the amounts, forget the ganja and all that, Rastafarians, these people were, I mean, it was wicked, and they thought nothing of it, and they said, that's where you want to go. So they took this group, they studied them up and down, and they, one of the only criteria that they said where there was a significant difference in users and non-users, but the users showed a higher rate of absenteeism. Upon which somebody commented, absentee from what? They're groveling in poverty. There's no place to go and be on time for. All right. Later on, High Times magazine, marijuana was cultivated. We always heard about Huawei Maui, Panama Red, sin semilla, or as it was called in West Ham, sin cebolla, which means without onions, which makes no sense, but those are pito, piteao, all of these. In Florida, this is from what I've read now, just from what I've read, there were different parts. Mayaca, which is near Sarasota, Mayaca, they had this particular time. There was a mud pod, a creeper pod, a weed that was like the delayed reaction. People were saying, this is garbage. And then around, or giggle pod or fall asleep pod. But it was various strains with levels of THC that really did not go off the charts. But there were other cannabinoids in there that combined for unique mellowness, and there were smells, and some on the more West Coast and Hawaii, they had almost like a Christmas tree. It was a different. All right, that was it. Became kind of mainstream. Nobody cared about it. Nobody was putting dispensaries. It was illegal, but whatever. But the quality, the texture, the variety, the levels of mellowness. There was a guy who was selling seeds. Was it emery seeds? I forget the name of it. I interviewed him one time years ago. He was in Canada, and he would sell you seeds from this plant or this plant or this plant. Now it's this universal skunk weed that just whacks people out. Now, I'm sorry, there's a long introduction, but hear me out. If ever you want to see two things that this is not going to help you, listen to Bill Maher, who is whacked out of his mind with Bill Burr. He can't put words together. And Cat Williams, who destroyed his reputation by getting so gooned, so waxed, so beat out with Joe Rogan after coming off of the big Club Shay Shay thing, because alcohol boosted him up. This, and in his mind, and one of the unique aspects of marijuana, this particular strain, is to give you the feeling that what you're saying is brilliant, that you have hit the levels of depth. And this is my only thing. that I want to my only little bit of reference regarding hallucinogenics and the like that Joe Rogan and other people talk about in terms of how much they love uh, this aquashuka, whatever these licking frogs and all this stuff is. It's not that you necessarily open up your mind and see different things. It gives you the impression that you're opening up your mind and seeing things. There is a difference between a sound and a hallucination. A hallucination versus an illusion. An illusion is something that's there that's distorted. A hallucination is something that's not there. There are intellectual, insightful, introspective hallucinations that people have where they come back and they say, I understand, I see, and they believe it. And if they believe it, it's like chiropractic. Look, if it works, fine. Even though most people can say he cracked the back, I don't know, but they feel better. Well, that's that. One of the things that Bill Maher, who probably has been smoking all his life, feels like I am a cool guy. I am basically turning into this old, kind of like a get off my lawn, kind of this enfeebled coot, wizened, bitter, very unhappy. And if I had to bet my money, I would say off the perverted scale in terms of being a paraphile. I'm just saying educated guess. So he sits around with Bill Burr, and Bill Burr is running rings around him. Why? Because Bill Maher is beat the out, but he's really gone. And he doesn't understand that he's not able to function. And he's not functioning well at all. In the least. He's doing terribly. And the same thing happened for Cat Williams. And I'm just telling you something. So if you're going to go on a radio show, have a drink. Have a drink. Loosen up, not loosen down. And that's one reason. So if you think this is and by the way, it may feel wonderful. You may think you're hearing music better, and I'm not going to argue with that. But we've got to understand some reality here. Now, what I tell you about weed is true, and it's not meant. I don't think it should be illegal. I think you can do whatever you want. I don't care. But the same thing goes for alcohol. And when I tell people with alcohol, they don't really understand. They think that. Have you ever dealt with somebody who is in the serious throes of what appears to be either heavy drinking or alcoholism? I don't know. There's a level. There's a marginal line there. I don't know where it starts or what. There are people I know who just drink a lot. They're not really alcoholics. They stop. They don't have any withdrawals. They go to work. They don't get caught. They just drink a lot. It's like they're overeaters, and then there are people with eating disorders. There's always this. And one thing they will do is the best thing about people who are maybe in the alcoholic range is you come up with the greatest lies and distortions of reality anyone's ever heard. I'm not drinking. What are you talking about? And all of a sudden, say, Jerry, you're drunk. I am not drunk. Jerry, you sound like this. I know you. No, you don't. Some get combative. Some do this. You've seen it. You know all about it. Now, when I tell people that, it's not to tell people to stop, not to drink. I'm not going to be a teetotaler or tell people to do that. No, but I'm telling you, this is a reality. This is the reality. I used to opiates. I don't know about you, but you know what? If you ever have a real painful thing, like a wisdom tooth or some kind of pain, go to your doctor and they say, I'm going to give you something. You can say, you know what? Give me one. Why? Because that's the best feeling I'll ever have. I'm just going to be chasing it. I hate to use that term, chasing it. First feeling is great. Hey, I feel great. Yeah, that's it. You'll never feel like that again. Next, you're going to get constipated. And then you're going to wonder, what the hell am I doing here? These are reality. This is one of those things. So what Bill Maher and others are telling you is that, please, I wish they would have a disclaimer on these shows that say the host is smoking this skunk weed with a 75% THC, whatever, because you're not going to be hearing anything. This is a waste of time. I would love to have this. I'm not trying to be gross here. I would have loved to have taken Stephen Hawking. You know, remember Stephen Hawking was sitting in his chair and he had a lot of his stuff already programmed out. And he got to look at it. I love to say, here's Stephen Hawking. Please, I'm not mocking him. Okay, now we're going to get him beat the out. We're going to give him this absolute killer, you know, whatever this Oaxacan red or something. Somehow give it to him and see if he types anything different. See if he says anything different. What if he says black holes are bullshit? Did I say that? I didn't mean that. Hey man, got any Dylan? You know, what would he say if you just merely heard the output versus the physical manifestations of alcohol, of cannabis inebriety? Just a thought. So there should be something on the bottom of these things to say, please, for the love of God, at the bottom, because, you know, there's these new legislations that have people say things like, I want there to be a warning. I want there to be a warning. The following is AI. I use AI with it. Okay, well, maybe you use AI with that, but I don't really care. Though we've got some pictures of people here who really are okay. Fine, thank you. We got some music here. Okay, fine. But there should be a warning. I'm serious. That the host is out of his mind. And if you could have some kind of a blood level, because this way I'm going to say, I'm not going to hear Mar. Oh, this is what it says. He's in the blue range. He's been smoking this weird stuff. I'm not going to waste my time with that. Because here's the big payoff. This stuff will mess you up. Not permanently, not plastically, not elastically, but this stuff is not harmless. It is there to get you whacked out of your mind, to be gooned. That is precisely what it is. Do not think I am kidding. And if you think that the brain can keep bouncing back from this, I hope so. I hope it does. All right. But if you ever want to see what it is, look at Cat Williams, listen to his horrible, hey man, don't. Now you understand why Thelonious Monk talk like that. And Miles Davis, there's something that, and they felt great, but their output is de minimis at best. Now, stand by for a second. Because there's one thing, if you are beat out and you're gone out of your mind, there's something that you probably need is a place to lay your head. And a great place to lay your head is our good friends at MyPillow from MyPillow.com, promo code Lionel. It's time yet again, my friends, to hail and salute our great friends at MyPillow.com. And if you use promo code Lionel, you'll get a free gift. No purchase necessary. And yes, I know a free gift. It's a tautology, so sue me. But first, listen carefully. Check out their $25 extravaganzas. Premium My Pillows, Queen and King, My Pillow 2.0. My Pillow bed sheets, the lowest price ever. Sandals, slides, slippers, 6-piece towel sets, 4-pack dish towel sets. Simply and absolutely unbelievable. So go to mypillow.com/Lionel, mypillow.com, promo code Lionel, or call 800-645-4965. And watch how fast Mike Lindell answers the phone. mypillow.com, simply and absolutely the best. Now, my friends, remember something. I'm not one of these people that says, no, do whatever you want. Live and let live, baby. I think there is something to be said for opening your mind and trying to get out and removing yourselves from this particular iteration of reality. Now, the next thing which is so important, and as you understand, and this is why those of you, and Bill Maher to an extent understands this. Whenever you're doing something like this, a little background. YouTube loves to tell you, "Hi guys, my name is Shoshana. I'm Moondog, and here's how you can get more likes and views." Yeah, and by the way, guys, hey, like this. Have you ever seen one of these instructional tutorials? I mean, absolutely horrible. But you'll learn something. Hi, this is how you can make a border using Canva. Hi, guys, like the video. I understand. Okay, all right. And they'll start off by saying, now the most important part of this is let's look at Mr. Beast and how he makes a thumbnail. it takes Mr. Beast 12 years to do a thumbnail. And that's why, God bless him. I don't understand it, but that's okay. Just because I don't understand it doesn't mean it's wrong. But they're thinking, okay, maybe it is. No, it's a thumbnail. Say, no, Beast, I don't think. Well, anyway, I've got an idea. Why don't you have great content and then the thumbnail? Who cares about the thumbnail? I mean, I know this is sacrilegious, this is heretical in the world of YouTube, but I'm saying, who cares about the thumbnail? It's like the album cover. Remember the Nirvana album cover with that pornographic picture of the kid? Yeah. Do you think they bought it because of the album cover or because it was Nirvana? The cover of Sgt. Pepper makes no difference because it's Sgt. Pepper. Hell, the White Album, people have it in reverse. They're not, whatever. So consequently, when you're in this realm, when you're on TV, when you're doing a show, and you have people who are into production, you have to think of it as a runaway train that you want to remain as a runaway train. And you want it to be constantly filled with these, how do I say this? These, it's like you're stoking the fire or the furnace with wood and steam and this and that to keep it going. You're absolutely keeping this thing going. So just keep saying something. Put something out. Next, coming up, next. Take a story, break it up into 1,000 pieces. Coming up next. Have you ever seen the Witches of Eastwick? I shouldn't say that. But they have the Harris Faulkner with the ladies sitting around, and they'll take one story and they divide it up into 4 people with one segment. They say one thing. It's like Trump's case. Take one activity, break it up into 34 different counts, and make it sound like it's like this one case. Yes, Your Honor, my client is charged with 12,000 counts of distribution. What? Well, he had 12,000 little packets of crack. You're charging him with each one? Yes, each one's a separate transaction. No, they don't do that. But with Trump, it's 34 counts. I wrote the check. You picked up the pen. Count 1. I took the cap off. Count 2. I put the letter D. I signed it. Count 3. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing anybody's ever seen before. So if you get one juror who says, forget it, it's one activity, not guilty, the whole thing goes. It's a hung jury. But they don't know what to say anymore. They just, coming up right now, Jonathan Turley, Andy McCarthy, John Yoo, Greg, you know his name, Greg? Jarrett. Nice guy. Always been a gentleman since we worked together years ago at Court TV years ago, believe it or not. Good egg. Greg Jarrett. It's the same thing. Andy McCarthy, what do you think? Well, I think they charged too many counts. John Yoo, I'm John Yoo, the torture memo. This is a guy I want to party with. He came up with a torture. I think we should torture people. Okay, John. Have a seat, John. Thank you. This is John Yoo. He wants to torture people, but he's in his office. How about Victor Davis Hanson? Victor, can you not talk about Thucydides? Yeah, nobody knows what you're talking about. You're making this bullshit up. Well, Rhapsodides said one time that he who has the snake mustn't worry about the wolf. Who said that? None of these people are going to check this. Excuse me, John. Yes, Mr. Hanson, Dr. Hanson. Yeah, there is no Papadopoulos, and then nobody said that. Are you making this shit up? Yes. Why? Because I'm on with Jesse Waters. Nobody's going to question me. I'm out with Mark Levin. You think any of this crew is going to sit there and say, did you say Thucydides or was that Aeschylus? No. Okay. So the bottom line is, much like people who are telling you how to be innovators on YouTube, people on these shows say the same thing over and over again. Remember when there used to be a show on TV on CNN I used to be on years ago. This is terrible. It was... They called it bitches in boxes. It was terrible. I'm sorry. It's not my word. They have all these women in these squares. And then one time they had all these people. One time I had a newspaper. I'll never forget. I was on CNN years ago. And there was one place on It was 8th Avenue, it was right where the Moynihan station is, but right in one of those 10 Plaza places. Anyway, I'm there and I show up and they say, there's 10 people here. This is what am I doing here? So there was a newspaper in this little room, and I just read the newspaper. I was waiting to go on. Then I realized, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to keep doing this. I go, I'm here at line 1, line 2, and we have today John Yu, so-and-so. We got Margot Kidder. We got Charo. We've got Lars the Wonder Chimp. We've got Senor Wences. We got Florence Henderson, Greg Brady, Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, Anna Maria Alberghetti, and me. And I'm wondering, this is like the Ed Sullivan show. What am I doing here? What am I doing here? What do we do? So I had this newspaper, and I just kept reading it. And you saw, and I could kind of look and see the monitor. You know, all these people and me. I thought it was brilliant. I'm just looking at the newspaper. I said, what was that? Go ahead, whatever. Yeah, I agree 100%. And I put the thing up, and then they say, wait a minute. And I stole the show. Agree with what? I said, whatever you said. Because obviously you don't want me here to say anything of substance because there's 10 of us. And that's what? A tenth of a second per person? Come on. I went back. I was the hit. Now, this is before there was no VCR. Remember, set the VCR. What? There was no YouTube. And anybody who thinks you want to go back to that particular way of thinking, I don't. I love this. I love our modernity, and I love this. So consequently, I know there was a long build-up to this. Here's the rule regarding President Trump. Number 1, President Trump, remember this, and I'm telling you something, always admit when you are caught. This is not meant as a joke. Admit this. Admit it. Admit it. You were going 52 and a 35. Whatever you say, sir, you have the radar gun, and I want to thank you for your time. License and registration. What are you going to do? Admit it. Yep, whatever you say. I don't know. I'm going to defer to you. Already you're saying, you know what? I might give this guy a break. As opposed to, why'd you stop me? I wasn't. What do you stop me? I know my rights. You ever watch these YouTube channels? Sir, would you please roll down the window? I'm not going to roll down my window. I'm a constitutional common, whatever it is. Sir, I'm going to break your window. I'm not going to, and they break the window, and so admit it. So what Trump should have said was, did you have sex with Stormy Daniels? Yeah. That's it. Don't react to it. Say, I'm wrong. It's wrong. I'm not proud of it. By the way, great book. The autobiography of George Jones. His line was, my life, not proud of it. I did it. Not proud of it. Forget the I'm not proud of it. Just say, yeah, I sex with her, sure. Did you have sex with her in 2006? Yep. In the hotel? Yep. I can tell you the room number if you recall, because we got the bill somewhere. Yep. Did you have sex with her? Yep. And did you pay her? Yep. In order to keep it quiet? Well, that's what a non-disclosure is. Yes, I did. Do you know if he said that, there would be no Stormy Daniels and there would be no Michael Cohen? It would be straight to the intent part. And it also derails it. Yeah, sex. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. I one time interviewed Bob Barker. And Bob Barker was alleged. It was said that he had sex with Janice, whatever her name was, or one of the girls, whoever it was. I don't know if it was her, but one of those names he allegedly had his ways, or one of the names, or whatever, whoever. It doesn't matter. But I'm interviewing him, and he was in the studio at WABC, and he had so much makeup. Whenever they do makeup, you ruin all your collars. They all are orange, and he had orange this, and his collar was this. I kept thinking, I wonder how you're going to get that out of your. Anyway, such a nice man. So I talked to him, and he said, I said, so they're alleging that you had sex with it, but he said, I did. He says, I'm 80 years, whatever he was, years old. I'm not married. This was consent. I did. Yeah, well, they said it was in your dressing room. It was. I did. And it was great. It was like, that's not the issue. And pretty soon it's like, oh, okay. Well, that's what Trump should have said. Yeah. Now, what Trump can't say is he says, that's sex with a lot of people. Half of them you don't even know about. I mean, you have no, look at me. Do you know how many people? And not only that, I'm not chasing these people down. They're coming after me. Stormy Daniels came after me. I'm not shaking the bushes. I'm not bothering anybody. I'm not harassing anybody. She came to me. And McDougal, even more so. Oh, McDougal, she is just, oh my God. You want to talk about a woman, a sad woman. Her heart was broken. She loved him. She loved him. And then she went from him to Bruce Willis, and she was going to find somebody. She is, you look at her. My God, she looks so angry, hurt. Stormy's like, oh, by the way, did you know that Barrett Blade, I looked up his IMDb, whatever the porn version of it. His name is Barrett Blade. His name is like Barrett, somebody, Eddie Barrett or something. Do you know what his other name was? You know, like Dirk Diggler, Harry Dangler, you know, one of those porn names. You know what his other one was? Barrett Bangwell. And did you hear what they said? Well, you know, she's a writer. A writer? Oh, for God's sake. Anyway, going back to what I said, if they stipulated to this, if they absolutely said, listen, this is, I had sex, then there's no need for Stormy Daniels. She was there because he said, I never had sex with her. Okay, bring her in. And then Cohen came in, just stipulate to us, say, yep, that's my hammer. Yep, that's it. And they'd go right to the issue of intent. This is the thing which is the most important. This is the case which is the most important. This is the issue which is the most important. All of this could have been, let this be a lesson to you. Let this be a lesson to you. I can't say this enough. Do you understand what I'm saying? I can't say this enough. This is critical. All of this is unnecessary. Every bit of it, unnecessary. You didn't need this. But because for some reason, I don't know why. I mean, it's too late now. He said no, and then he said yes. He said no, and said yes. That's the issue. So one of the things which is so critical, which is so important, that people have to recognize is that if it weren't for these people, the issue would have been very simply, ladies and gentlemen, Judge Mershon, it is time for the motion for a judgment of acquittal. And I'm going to tell you that the prosecution had to prove that the business records were in fact false, that President Trump had a fraudulent intent in making them false, and that the fraudulent intent manifested itself and included concealing a campaign expenditure pursuant to state laws which don't exist. That case would have been over in an hour and a half. But that's not what Trump did. No, Trump had to go and he had to. No, I never had. I don't know who she is. It never happened. Why are you saying that? Does anybody believe it ever happens? No. So because it never happened, because you're basically calling into question the underlying feasibility or reason of the particular thing, you're now bringing in all these cases. So that's that. Another thing, you got to ask yourself the question. I would say to you, ladies and gentlemen, assuming this wasn't the case, you have 34 counts. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't find him guilty of 17 and not guilty of 17, or find him guilty of 1 and not guilty. It's all or nothing, because it is one transaction. It is one transaction. As I mentioned before, selling drugs involves the cultivation of the drugs, the packaging of the drugs, putting them in each individual plasticine bag, sealing it, distributing it, each person, each count, each sale, each transaction, each money. One transaction could be broken down into 1 million subparts. That's what this is. They are trying to give you the impression that there is a degree of complexity of this that you must deal with. There is no such thing, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. There is no such thing. Do you hear what I'm saying? Nothing. It does not exist. It is that simple. And with that, things will be different. But it looks very, very good. But I don't know whether there is any chance of any of this happening because we just don't know. So you can take all of your stuff and you could basically remove, I'd say 75% of all commentary in the Trump trial because it would say, excuse me, Andy McCarthy, John Yoo, do you have anything new to say since before? No. Okay. Coming up next, and that's it. But they're paid, and I understand. A lot of people have never heard prior analysis, so this is different. But there's really nothing to this. I hate to say it. It's a very simple, straightforward case of prosecutorial overreach and something that is incredible. So anyway, my friends, I hope you have enjoyed today's version of this thing. Let me remind you, dear friends, to follow Mrs. L, Lynn's Warriors. Here we go. This is the link. If you go in there, you click this link. It'll take you right to her channel, right to her YouTube channel, and you can immediately sign up and be on board with this. It's the most incredible stuff. She is the hardest working person. The other day, she spent the entire day working in Albany, the ghost town, going from with other people. And there are so many wonderful centurions. And by the way, I heard Dirk Diggler or Harry Dangler, whatever his name is, Mr. Bangwell, referred to his wife as a warrior. She's a warrior. No. She's a porn star. I mean, it's legal, but she is not exactly Ethel Barrymore. You see what I'm saying? She's not Marion Seldes by any stretch of the imagination. So anyway, follow, please. Follow. Mrs. L at Lynn's Warriors. Now, don't know about tonight or the time for the evening. I'm not sure. There is an engagement that may preclude it. So I may do an earlier version. I may do a live one. Make sure you are subscribed and make sure you know what's going on because I am popping up when I have the moment to do it. I just do it. I don't even plan it. Just do it. Let me get the word out because I want to tell you something new, tell you something different. Remember, my friends, always be innovative and understand that what you're doing is when it comes to Bill Maher, it's over for him. He doesn't care. He figures I don't have to be new. I have to be Bill Maher. Sorry, Billy. As we say in the South, that dog don't hunt. All right, dear friends, have a great and glorious day. Don't forget, Lionel Nation. Make sure you're subscribed, Lionel Nation. Until then, remember, the monkey's dead. The show's over. Sue ya. Ta-ta.